All right, Chantel and Brandon, thanks for joining me. Looking forward to our conversation. Question one is the only one that's really scripted, and I'll let both of you take a swing at it. Brandon, if you want to go first, and Chantel go second. But how did you fall into franchising? What's your franchise backstory?
Back in when we had first met, I just got out of the military. We started waiting tables, going to school, and I think about a year we were going to community college together. About a year into that, I, I I started thinking like I really would like to just do like a franchise, like instead of going to school, I just want to have my own business. And at that time, it was like Quiznos, Smoothie King. Those were kind of the big things. Papa John's was just getting started. So I started contacting them, and I was young. I think I was 25 years old. It was always the same question. Do you have management experience? What kind of experience do you have? I didn't have any management experience, just being in the military. It was always the same rejection letters. And Chantel's like, well, I have an uncle that started this thing called Wingstop. And I was like, well, what is Wingstop? It's like, I never even ate a chicken wing in 2001. I think that's when it was. And she's like, yeah, it's just wings. I was like, is it like a sports bar, burgers, pizza, wings, that kind of? She's like, no, it's just wings. I was like, well, that's stupid. That'll never work. And she's like, well, he had told me he's flying in his helicopter to go look at a store under construction in Oklahoma, and you can go with him and just ask him questions. I was like, flying a helicopter? Yeah, I'm in. So we met up. I met him, went and flew in the helicopter, and started hearing about Wingstop, and and I got interested, and then I went and saw the first one. So back then, it was a little 1,200 square foot space. It didn't open till 4 p.m. And when I walked in the door at 4:10, there was a line out the door. Phone was ringing off the hook, and I was like, "Okay, how do I sign up for this thing?" We ended up, we got signed up. We got with the loan broker. We didn't even have credit. Like everything we had bought was cash at that time. Had to get a loan broker. Had to go to the mall to like sign up for clothing stores just to get a credit card to show I had some credit to be able to get a loan. And back then they were giving out loans easy, I guess. The loan broker got us a loan. It took us about 10 months to get our first location. And yeah, I mean, we set on that first location for, we got a second location pretty soon within a year. Somebody wanted out. They were very low sales. We were working every hour of the day. And we got to about 4 locations to about 2014. And from there, we things started taking off for the brand, taking off for us. And we went from 4 locations to 32 by 2023. And then we ended up selling. In 2020, we started Urban Bird, and we sold the franchises out in December of 2023, so we could focus on Urban Bird.
Love it, Chantel. What's your version of falling into franchising?
Well, very similar. As he said, my uncle had the Wingstops. So I have I haven't been in the restaurant, but since I was a kid, my family's been in the restaurant business. So my uncle and uncle had Pizza Patron. So they, gosh, this goes back. So when I was like, I don't know, maybe 12 years old, I started working in Pizza Patron, helping my aunt in the kitchen. So I worked every single summer there. And I remember when they started franchising Pizza Patron, and it was always very interesting. And I loved the restaurant business. I loved people, and I loved being able to provide, a service, because I love working with people. And years later, they started working on Wingstop, and I remember my aunt and uncle working on the recipes in their backyard and testing different flavors, and it was very interesting. I didn't really understand the whole scope of what it actually was, at that time, but I ended up maybe like in like 18 years old, they opened up their first Wingstop. They sold their first. They first they had Pizza Patron. They started franchising that, and I worked in that business with them for a little bit in the kitchen, and then they started working on Wingstop when I was about 15, and then later on they started franchising that, and it was very interesting. And I knew some of the franchisees that they had. I knew the franchisee that they sold their first franchisee to in Houston, so I went to that grand opening, and then ended up years later, Brandon and I met I worked at a car dealership. Like he said, he was in the military, and I worked at the car dealership. I was a customer service manager, and he he and I met. And then later on, we ended up waiting tables, and I learned to love the restaurant industry even more. But at the time, we were going to community college. He was going to be a plastic surgeon, and I was going to be a veterinarian. And then that soon changed. As we were going to community college, he was like, I really think, I'm interested in like having my own business. And he saw this really long line at a coffee place, and he was thinking like maybe Starbucks, and then realized that wasn't something that, you could buy a franchise for. And then I told him about my uncle, and then he went on the helicopter ride with him. And then he was like, we should do this. I'm like, okay, let's do it. So we both dropped out of school and just focused on the one Wingstop that we bought. Took us a year to find the location, and then just fell in love from there. And we've been just really pushing away since then. So.
Okay, you were both very humble and modest in this, but to become a 30+ unit franchisee either takes probably a little bit of crazy, because like you have like to go that big and what you guys are able to do. Plus, it has to have like your story has grit and hustle, because Brandon, you said like I could barely get credit cards to pay for the clothes at the mall. Like if you reflect backwards on it, do you have a time to reflect back on it? Did it go so fast? Did you look back at it with fondness? Like how do you look back on that experience as a 30
When
years?
you look back, it feels like a whole nother world, like a whole nother lifetime away. Like it's crazy to me when I think back when we first opened our first Wingstop. Like literally, we had for fax orders, people would fax in their orders. We had the roll up fax paper. We had the cash register where you push the buttons. You have to handwrite tickets before like the real POS systems, and just watching things change over time. But looking back, how it first started, and I mean, it was insane. I mean, it just feels like a whole lifetime away, but it went so fast at the same time. So.
When I think about your story too, and obviously we've had in-depth conversations about it, but there was this moment, like you get up to 4 units and you still haven't made it. At what point, and maybe never, but at what point during that journey did you say, all right, I feel like we've made it? Or did you ever get to that point?
I never really feel, I think like every step when we finally hit a goal, I speak for myself. When I finally hit a goal, I'm already on the next goal. So it's like, I know I'll never make it, but as long as I keep wanting to chase something, that's all I need. You know what I mean? And I need purpose, I need drive, and it's what excites me. There's really nothing that I love more doing than building something and feeling that, dopamine of accomplishment, and it doesn't last long and you need more. It's almost like an addiction, right? So anything, it could go in so many different ways, but for me, it's in building businesses, and that's where my dopamine high comes in.
Well, frankly, and Chantel, I want your opinion on it too. But I think the majority of people that go into business for themselves, especially those that don't come from money, like had to build something up to get to like the starting line. The money ends up being a scorecard more than anything, but the scorecard never says you won the game. And it's not like you could probably look at a bank account and say, all right, we've done okay. But it's hard mentally to just say like I crossed the finish line, because it's almost like the excitement and what you just said, the excitement of the win is so important that you just continue, you're searching for that next victory, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I could care less about the bank account, and I feel no different from having, just barely what I needed to start a Wingstop back then to what we have now. Like for me, it's like you said, my point system is more of like where we are in the bit. How many units do we have? How is it running? The money is just like, okay, we need this to build more. Like it's important because we needed to build more, but I don't really focus on any money side as like, oh, I'm going to go buy a boat, or care less about having a nice car. We just want to build a business and create opportunity for people. And that's what we love. We love when we see, and we talk about it all the time, when we have like a cook come in with no experience, and then 2 years later they're a store manager, and then 2 years later now they're a district manager. Now they have a whole career, and that is so rewarding, and it just never gets old, And it's those kind of things that just create that excitement of building the business. I think that we find very valuable.
And Chantel, I have a feeling you're similar, that you never really get to sleep at night, right? You still worry about what's next.
I don't worry. I mean, Brandon and I are the same in so many ways. We're not motivated by money. We're motivated by purpose and making a difference and working. We're workaholics. We're happy working. That's our happy place. We never went on vacations. We never it's like, we're going to do this and we're going to do that. We worked. That was our passion. And that was what drove us. So when we first opened the first Wingstop, we ended up like a few months later buying another Wingstop from another franchisee that we went to training with. And so then we had two. I ran one, he ran the other. I was working at the apartment complex during the day because at that time Wingstop didn't open until 4, and then I was, waiting tables, and, we worked and worked and worked. So, and it made us happy to work. We both grew up poor. I had kind of a tear jerker backstory. So I saw my aunt just hustle. She was hardworking, and I saw that, and that was like, okay, that's what I need to do. I need to hustle to. It wasn't motivated by money, but just to be somewhere in life and to not have to struggle or worry about paying the bills or take care of my family. I was always motivated by like just working hard, and everything else will follow. I just giving everything my best. And I knew I loved, working with people and animals. And anyway, so I knew that if whatever I wanted to do in life, that I would have to work really hard for it. And that's what drives me. We're both like workaholics and very driven that way. So that's what pushes us. And it's never going to end. We're not happy unless we're working and going. Our goal is the sky is the limit.
I love that. Brandon, talk about, obviously Urban Bird is now a thing, and we're going to get into the details on that, but how does Urban Bird even get started?
By trying to fix a bad situation. So when we were doing Wingstop, we got up to about 7 units, and things just kind of slowed, like finding new locations. At the time, the market was just kind of full, and I just wanted to keep building, right? So I paid a lot of attention to restaurant news magazines, Franchise Times, that kind of thing, and I saw there was a pizza group. I don't want to call them out on the call, but it was a pizza group that got started, and it was, long story short, it was a failure. So we opened this pizza concept in 2017, ended up having to close the doors in 2018. It was a larger space, like about 3,200 square foot. The rent was about $15,000 a month. So when we closed, we're not going to just walk away from a lease. We're going to do it right. So we're going to keep paying the lease, try to find a new tenant. We sat on this lease for over a year, paying $15,000 a month. And the space was built out with like these Neapolitan pizza ovens, like wood burning pizza ovens. It wasn't a traditional restaurant space that could be easily assumed by a sandwich shop or something. It was specific for pizza. So the second generation side of it wasn't very attractive because it would have took a lot of demo and a lot of money to change it over. So we sat on this thing. I'll back up a little bit. I think it was in 2018, we had went to Vegas for a convention, and we walked into, I would watch, when I'd read restaurant news and stuff, I would always had this thing for chicken and waffles. Like, I love chicken and waffles. I thought about opening up a chicken and waffle restaurant. And I saw there was a place called Brooksy Chicken and Waffles. I remember seeing them in the magazine, and they were next to one of the casinos. I was like, let's go eat there real quick. So we walked in. We weren't that hungry. We were going to split something. And one of the items was a limited time hot chicken sandwich. I'm like, I don't know what that is, but it's spicy. I like spicy, and we eat chicken. So let's do that. So we split it. And when I bit into that thing, I was like, wow, this is amazing. Like this is the first time I ever tasted hot chicken. So automatically I had this craving for hot chicken. So we come back to Houston and I'm looking for hot chicken. So I'm finding hot chicken options on like KFC had a hot chicken and it was not very good. There was a lot of chain restaurants added a hot chicken item because it was kind of a new thing, but it just didn't taste the same. It just didn't taste right. And then we found this little food truck here in Houston that had these hour-long lines for their hot chicken, and it was actually pretty good. So we would just go get hot chicken. I'd pick it up, bring it home, and eat hot chicken, and just enjoyed that. I didn't think about opening a hot chicken restaurant. Had no idea how to make hot chicken, anything. I was just enjoying eating hot chicken. And then one day I was driving past the shopping center where we had closed, and there was a Tom and Chi concept that had failed, that just closed their doors in the middle of the center. And it sparked in my head. I was like, man, if we had that space, I can easily get out of this lease. Like it has 2 hoods. Like you could do any kind of Indian restaurant, steak, like whatever you want to do in that spot. It's smaller. It was like 2,500 square feet instead of 3,500. I was like, we can easily get out of this situation. So I texted the landlord. I was like, hey, you should let me open up a hot chicken restaurant. Let me switch spaces and open up a hot chicken restaurant in that Tom and Cheese space. And I thought he would just kind of laugh at me, but he sent me a text back. He's like, let's talk. So I ended up meeting with both of the owners of the shopping center and somehow convinced them that I cooked this amazing hot chicken. They didn't even know what it was. They're like, can you put together like a presentation and send it? So I had to put together this PowerPoint presentation and pull stuff. A lot of hot chicken was getting big in California with Howlin' Ray's and Dave's Hot Chicken. So there was things to show that it was a thing. I put together this PowerPoint presentation, sent it to them, and they said, okay, honestly, because you've been paying rent on it for a space that's closed for a year, nobody ever does that. We're going to let you do this. But that was in January 2020. They said, can you be open by May? And I was like, I think so. So I was able to buy all the assets in the space, all the equipment, most of it that we can use, furniture, everything, for like $9,000 from the lender that was foreclosing on the space. And we started working on this project every week. We were doing food testing and working on this thing, but then COVID hit and that kind of slowed us down, made things harder. And also just developing the recipe was the hardest thing. It took 60 experiments to get the chicken to where we felt it was perfect and exactly what we wanted. It was definitely a very frustrating process for me because I've been in the restaurant business for a long time and worked at different restaurant chains, cooked all kinds of stuff. And I just thought like this, how hard can cooking fried chicken be? So, you do the normal thing, you get on YouTube and you're finding recipes, but it's just not that good, or it all kind of tastes the same. And what I wanted was very specific. So, I don't really eat a lot of fried chicken, so I wanted something very light, crispy breading, something with not too much sodium, because everywhere I go has too much sodium and it makes me feel bloated and kind of sick after. So I wanted something that didn't taste like that. So it just took forever to come up with that. We nailed it. We opened in September 2020. And we were one of the first restaurants to open with actual dine-in. Everybody else was just to-go only. So it works because people were really just desperate to come and sit down and eat at the restaurant. And we really spaced out the tables. So like if you look at our first store, it's a lot of wide open. Like it's kind of, we didn't cram tables in there like was there before. We spaced it out. And it was particularly for COVID. A lot of the recipes, like the fries, we have a special delivery fry. Everything was designed around delivery at that time because it was primarily delivery during COVID, which ended up turning to the future of most restaurants nowadays. We're 70% off premises. But so yeah, we opened that one. It opened decent, and just each week started picking up, and it just really worked. And I looked and I'm like, wow, this is a thing. So let's start looking for more of these locations. COVID, kind of like everybody was getting through that free COVID money that came, and restaurants started closing and some really good real estate. And we started finding great deals and just kept opening them up. So, and we've been doing that, ever since. So.
Flash forward. What's the footprint?
Yeah, 5 years later, now we I think by May we should have 28 open.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So 28 in 5 years.
Well, and if you look at what's the secret of a great franchise system, it's when franchisees continue to open up locations. And I would say the same is true for a franchisor, because franchisors open up locations, they're not doing it for charity. They're doing it because it continues to impact, the pool of money that they're going to be able to reinvest in the business. Chantel, what makes you proud about Urban Bird where it is now?
Well, several different things. Our culture is very important. I take pride in that. It's the people that, that work for us. They're very passionate about what they do. And for the most part, I really, truly believe that they love what they do. And I'm proud of how far we've come, and we've changed our story, because there was a lot of grit, a lot of pain, a lot of tears. We went through a lot to get to where we are, and it's almost like unimaginable. Like, we just kept pushing and pushing and pushing, and just taking one step in front of the other, and just waking up every morning and tackling one more thing, and putting one more fire out. And and here we are, 2017, we fell in love with a pizza concept and opened it. And that was pretty devastating to have to shut that down. And we ended up turning that around, and we had no plan to ever. I mean, one day we talked about being a franchisor, but we wanted to grow and have as many different restaurants in our portfolio. So we were planning on opening up as many Wingstops as we possibly could, and then moving on to another, franchise. Sorry. But it just didn't. The way that it all unfolded is shocking, and I'm proud of that, because we were very resilient, and we're very positive, and we kept pushing forward, and we took something that was very devastating for us and turned it around, and it was devastating. It was really hard. I mean, paying $15,000 a month for a year and a half for something that we were both very, very, very passionate about, and wanted to, we signed up to build 5 of these. And I was devastated for the other franchisees that had to shut down. And we just had no idea. We opened up Urban Bird with the purpose of getting out of a lease and turning it into something else to possibly sell, or to give to our son. Maybe he could run it, because we thought maybe it might be something for him to do, just something added for him to do. He was homeschooled, both of our kids were homeschooled. And so they had the flexibility to work in the restaurant with us. So they spent a lot of time working in the restaurant with us, and sleeping on couches and potato boxes, and so they fell in love with the restaurant business too. Well, my son, especially, my daughter as well. But we thought, well, okay, we'll turn this restaurant, open it up, and then possibly give it to him. And then it ended up being like, wow, this is really good. And then COVID hit, and then we took advantage of the opportunity for us with the different restaurants shutting down, and we ended up opening and growing pretty fast. So I'm proud of that. I'm proud of our story and changing the path, and giving opportunity, to all the, everyone that we have that works for us. They're all incredible. And we honestly would not be where we are today without that team that we have in place. Our operations manager is his name's Augusto Chavez, and he is, the people are the heart of what we do, and building a strong culture, and that is what I'm most proud of.
Brandon, I think a lot about silver linings. Like, obviously you had a pizza experiment that did not go well. And even when the pizza experiment didn't go well, you guys were sophisticated franchise operators. Like, you were in the top 1% probably of restaurant operators in the country by the portfolio that you had. Mix what you know about Wingstop and what you're able to do there. Blend in what you learned from the experience with the pizza brand. Is this part of what the North Star is for Urban Bird and whatever other concepts you do, that now you truly what the day of a shitty day in the life of a franchisee is in so many different ways, and a great day is that you're able to use that as the North Star for what you're going to do with Urban Bird?
Yeah, I think anytime you could start a franchise with a franchisee background is always going to, you're able to see it out of two different lenses, right? So I think that's very, very beneficial because you never really know until you do it, right? Until you're in that seat, until you deal with the pains of, being a franchisee, and you take what's good, you take what's bad, and you know how you can make it better. And that's always going to be beneficial to have that experience. Another thing I think that's very good for us and was important to me, like before we started selling franchises, like I want to open up a lot of these locations because I need to see what works, because just like in any restaurant concept, you have some that are just killing it, and then you have some that aren't doing that well. Well, why are these not doing that well? Well, now with over 20 open, we're really able to dig in and see the data and see the demographics. Now we're nailing it down. Like, this is where it works, this is where it's not working. And I think that's very important for the franchise to figure that out and not leave it up to the franchisee to figure that out.
I'm glad you said that, because the majority, and you and I talked about this, the majority of emerging brands get maybe 1 or 2 or 3 units open. And if they're lucky, they get one out of state to have some sort of proof of concept, but most don't. They go into franchise, they start franchising it. And what you just said is, like, you had to get up to at least enough locations to understand the behaviors of how a unit could work in different scenarios, which now truly will check something off the list for a franchise buyer when they buy in that they don't have to do. It's not going to be perfect, but you have all this intel. And I think that gives you such a tremendous leg up over these other brands. Say the pizza brand that did not do that did not understand build out costs, did not understand demographics. So therefore the expectations could never be set. And that probably led to the greater percentage of franchisees headed towards failure than success, right?
Correct. And in addition to that, we're able to test different models, right? So different sizes. So we have anywhere from 1,500 to 3,200 square feet. So we're able to test different things, especially using almost everything. All but 2 have been second generation, just going in very affordably, doing remodels, cutting a lot of the cost. Every restaurant we go to is designed a little different, right? So we're able to make it work, and having that flexibility in the model is also a benefit for franchisees as well, because they're able to take advantage of those second generation spaces when they're available, and we're going to figure out how to make it work, right? There's a few key elements that we need, but even though they're all different, they all feel like an Urban Bird when you walk in, and we know how to do that with the colors, with the decor, and the environment, and the smell, the sounds. Like, we got it nailed down. So I actually really love that they're all different. I love that aspect. But we do have we kind of put what we like about everything together in one, and that's the design we have for the full build outs as well. We have 2 of those now. So
I do want to, there's 2 words that come to mind when I've thought about you guys and how you guys are approaching this. And there's a lot of integrity, and there's a lot of honesty back to someone that's going to invest their life savings into the business, which I don't know is the case with all franchisors. And one thing that I want to call out, when I asked this to you guys yesterday, I said, why do you have a build out expense that's so much higher than what you've actually done? And the answer was, because we don't want a franchisee to get into a situation that is uncomfortable, where the expenses go higher than what we set the expectation at, because then we're not doing it in an honest way. And I think of that as an example. There's so many other examples in what your guys' story is on what you're trying to do to set this up to be a best-in-class franchise for the next buyer that comes in. But that's so important. And I almost go back to the culture side. Obviously, Chantel, you were talking about the culture as it relates to what you've built from a staffing standpoint, but it's also setting up a culture of what it could be for the franchisee. So I think that's tremendous. Chantel, what I love for you to close with, if there is someone watching this right now, what is the most important thing you want them to know about Urban Bird and the potential of reaching out and having a discussion?
Oh, wow. So, what we do at Urban Bird is we lead with our heart, and we care about the people, and we put the people first. The people come first, and the people meaning the guest experience to, the cook in the back of the house, preparing food. The quality of the food is top notch. It's a big part of what we do at Urban Bird is provide quality food. We make everything fresh. It's not frozen. It's all we bred it to order. So could you ask me that question again? I want to make sure that I hit every point.
Hit someone's watching this and thinking, they're like, all right, I'm impressed. Why should they inquire?
Well, if they want to, I don't want to. So I feel like I don't like the sales part of it. I don't want to sell anything to anybody. I want people to buy because they're just as passionate about the restaurant business as I am, and about building a culture within their, in their restaurant or their portfolio of restaurants, that they care about people. I feel like if you lead with, your heart, and your culture is about people and making sure that your team is happy and you're passionate about what you do, I feel like that's the most important thing for me. Like, and if you want something that you really, you want something that you can really, you want something from a person, from like Brandon and I as a team, that really care about what they do. Every little detail, every single little detail is very important to us, from the cleanliness to when that guest first walks in the door, to every product we serve, from the fresh cut cabbage. I don't want to sell anything to anybody. I want people to buy it because they're passionate, and it's something that they feel like that they can be happy to, own a Urban Bird.
Yeah,
So
that's the statement. Brandon, what would you say?
Yeah, everything she said is accurate, and on top of that, as far as a business model, I think we've got it nailed down. I don't know of another better hot chicken restaurant out there, right? So I feel like we got the hot chicken game figured out. We have a lot of experience, like with the people we work with. That we just do a really good job at what we do. We have a proven model, and I think there's just so much room for Urban Birds all throughout the whole world. Like, I think it's going to be huge, and in just 5 years, it's shown so much potential. So we're super excited about it.
Yeah, and I'll close by saying this: you got franchisee to franchisor. You have a franchisee that failed in the traditional sense, whether the franchisor failed them or not. A situation where they went through what a failure feels like, so they know they never want to feel like again. You have a franchisor that opened up 20 plus units prior to really pushing franchising. I've never seen a base like this from someone starting up a concept. And so when I rely on my 20 years in franchise and say, how many times have I seen something like this? It is zero. And so that lends it's the credibility back to the business to say, there's a lot of good here. And then, frankly, and this is for any candidate that looks at this, when you start looking at the numbers of what the potentials are, and even what these guys did to tighten up the profitability in the last year on labor, on food costs, like there's a lot of impressive things under this story that I'm just going to say this: a year from now, we play this video back. It'll be interesting to see how far the story has come. Now, the other benefit that these guys have that many franchisors don't have, they have the benefit of being able to say no, because they don't need a franchise fee to keep the lights on. The lights are kept on by the foundation that was built, and that's going to allow you guys to be very specific on who you let in. And so, from my standpoint, I'm very impressed with what you guys have created. I'm grateful that you shared some of your story with me today, and I look forward to seeing where the story goes from here too.
Yeah, I mean, we're looking for solid operating partners. We're not desperately trying to sell franchises by any means. Like, we're operators. We could keep doing what we're doing and doing it ourselves. And we operate with no leverage, completely debt free. So I mean, we could keep going the way we're going, and we plan to still open corporate stores. But yeah, we're looking for real, business partners, and that's our mindset, not just out trying to sell franchises to just anybody.
Love it.
Yes, we're very passionate about what we do, and we love what we do, and we're not pressured to sell anything. We want to have a partnership and a relationship with with people that are like-minded, who appreciate and value the culture that we have at Urban Bird.
Well, that's how you're going to build a spectacular club. So again, appreciate the two of you doing this for Brandon and Chantel. I'm Nick. This was
Thank
another
you.
episode of Meet the Franchise. Take care.